You're listening to the Belmar Bites podcast, brought to you by Belmar Consulting. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again on Belmar Bites podcast. We are excited to have an incredible guest with us today. And Matt, I know you and Kristina know each other a lot more than Kristina and I know myself, but I'll let you kick us off, Matt, and sort of welcome our guest and jump into this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, Kristina, thanks so much for joining us. This is going to be an awesome conversation. If this conversation is like any of the prior ones that we've had, I know that it'll be a treat for our audience to listen to, but maybe just for the benefit of our listeners, do you want to just introduce yourself, share a little bit about yourself, and do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Matt and Scott, for having me. My name is Kristina Lugo. I am the president and CEO of Avenidas. Avenidas is a nonprofit located primarily in Palo Alto and Mountain View, California, but really serve the counties surrounding us, San Mateo County and Santa Clara County, providing services to older adults and their families.
Awesome. So there's going to be a lot of questions that we're going to hit you with, but really just trying to help our audience understand a little bit more about Avenidas. So I guess for those who maybe don't or are not familiar with Avenidas and specifically the work that you all do, you want to kind of expand on what is it that Avenidas
The mission?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, our mission is simple at Avenidas. It's really to keep older adults and their family supported so that as an older adult ages, they have support to keep them active, healthy, and engaged. That might be a ride to a doctor's appointment or coming in for a Zumba class for more active older adults. We have a cafe, so a lot of our clients are coming in, they're getting a cup of coffee with friends, maybe they're going to wine tasting, art class, ukulele class. It really depends on what their interests are, and we try to engage them in whatever they want to do, provide those opportunities. We also have an adult day health center in Mountain View that serves those that aren't as independent. A lot of caregiver support, both at our downtown Palo Alto office as well as Mountain View, really trying to support that caregiver to learn and be educated on whatever needs might come their way or for their loved one. We also have a lot of social work services. So care management, what is either the older adult or the family member need to keep them independent as possible and supported and out of an institution for as long as we can.
Awesome. Well, I know, Kristina, having had the privilege of being able to get a tour a few weeks back, there's a lot of history to Avenidas. So I guess, is it a pretty old organization? I guess, how did it start?
Yeah, it started as the Senior Coordinating Council of Palo Alto was our, actually, I think there was even a name before that, but that's what we were until about 1998. And then we rebranded as Avenidas, which is really the kind of idea that there's many paths to aging, and you might be on one minute and something happens and you're on another path, and regardless of which path you're on, Avenidas services can help you navigate that. But yeah, we're 56, 57 years old now. And our building is actually the old Palo Alto Police and Fire Station. And so our building's going to be 100 years old next year. Wow. And so we remodeled it and built onto it a couple years ago. But it's really fun to share that history, especially those that used to have, like we had Vietnam War protests out front and people would register their bikes, whatever that means. So lots of history even before this building was Avenidas.
Kristina, in preparation for this conversation, I did a little reading and understand you've been in the organization for a few years. So what's your journey been? Maybe you could just even take a step, a little further back in terms of your career and maybe describe a little bit in terms of what you've done at Avenidas and what you're doing today.
Definitely. I've been with Avenidas for 8 years. Prior to that, I was with the Institute on Aging for 12. Running the PACE program, but my adult service career started growing up back in New York. My great aunt lived with us, or we lived with her rather, and she was in a wheelchair due to really bad arthritis. And so from a very early age, really came to appreciate kind of the aging journey. She was very cognitively intact, but physically not so much, and needed a fair amount of support. So I would help her wash her feet and help her in and out of bed, learning how to transfer someone. I would have my little shopping list when my mom would go shopping, and I would help her get her, special food that she liked. And so then in college, I was taking this psychology and aging class, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. Went back and got my master's down in Virginia, and then came out to California with my, I guess he was my fiance at the time. He was from here, and just made a career out of aging services. Started at an area agency on aging, and then moved into Institute on Aging for the next major part of my career.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for what you do, and that's an incredible journey and an incredible story. So you've been in this role now, I read, for the last couple of years.
Yeah, 2 years as CEO. Prior to that, after Institute on Aging, I wanted a little break in such a more of an executive role, and I took on the program director for the Rose Kleiner Center. It was really an opportunity to reconnect with our mission, the people that I love to serve. And Rose Kleiner Center is kind of where you see our mission come to life. There are about 65 older adults that come every day that otherwise would be isolated, very little social support at home, or their loved ones need to work during the day. And so being able to run that center, build it up, was just so meaningful to me. And then COVID happened, and things obviously changed a bit. I was promoted during that time to vice president of programs, and then a couple of years later to CEO when our CEO moved to Puerto Rico.
Awesome. Well, Kristina, I certainly, it's so tough to try to fast track, like, hey, this is the history in such a short conversation. But I want to double click on one thing that you brought up earlier.
Sure.
You brought up Zumba classes. You brought up a whole host of different activities. So how many different programs is Avenidas running? I guess I'm sure that number just continues to grow and grow. But
Yeah, it does. It continues to grow. We have about what we call 10 programs, but when you look at all of the services and clubs, I mean, we're probably in the hundreds, to be honest. Last year we had 62,000 service units across all of our programs and services, and about 4,500 people, unduplicated people served. And so someone might be coming into our village program, and then they're, working on aging in place, but as part of that, maybe they need to see the social worker or get a ride. So they're crossing over many of those paths, as I spoke about earlier.
And there's so many different journeys for everybody. Maybe just one thing that popped out there that I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about, because I think it's a really cool and unique program, is the village concept. Do you want to maybe speak about that? Because when I saw it was super cool.
Definitely. Yeah, the village started over 20 years ago in Boston, Beacon Hill, and we learned about it relatively early on, and we're the first West Coast village program. Our model is a little bit different. Oftentimes, older adults are getting together and saying, we want to build this community, which is the village movement is now a national model. I think there's over 250. And it's really meant to promote your community to help support each other in whatever aging journey you're on. So there might be, everybody has different needs and interests. And so our village program serves over 350 people annually. We have a ton of special interest groups, really determined by the village members themselves, what they want to see. They're going on trips, they're taking classes, they're writing their memoirs. We've actually published some books to help
wow.
support that. We have really made it possible so that our clusters, we call them, we have 10 clusters around Palo Alto, Stanford, Menlo Park, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, et cetera, to get to know their neighbors so that when they have a need or one of their neighbors has a need, they're able to support each other. We also have a vetted vendor list, so they have access to kind of a Yelp where if they have a need for home repairs or a roof or whatever you might need services for, that we have vetted that list, and oftentimes they're providing discounts to our older adults.
Scott, I'll let you tag in here because I could ask so many questions about that.
Oh yeah. No, that's, and it's interesting, for myself coming into this conversation, I had kind of the 30,000-foot view, but as you described this, it's all coming together in my mind, which is exciting. Just understanding a little bit more about the need. We work with numerous charities across the United States and Canada. Some are in growth mode, others are in sustainment mode, others are trying to figure out what the next 5 to 10 years looks like. What's the journey that your organization is on, and can you talk a little bit about the sort of strategic plan and where the organization is going?
1 in 4 Californians are over 60, and
Wow.
that's growing. There are more older adults in California right now than there are children under 18. And so we are taking a real deep dive. We started working on our current strategic plan that we're almost finished with at the beginning of the year, and taking a really deep dive, looking at what's our theory of change? What does it look like when we realize this plan? And how can we strategically grow to make sure that we're here to meet the needs of that aging population? So it's not just that there's more numbers of older adults, but we're doing that with less resources. They're living longer. And so the needs are going to shift over time in a much deeper way than they are now, because we're going to be stretched, right? As we figure out new ways to help meet the need, which is really where our technology needs come in, to be honest. We need to think smarter, not harder, and really look at how we're going to be here. We've been here 55 years. How are we here for the next 50 years, meeting the needs of our community as it changes and grows?
Yeah, amazing. That's a stat I had no idea that percentage of the population is over 60. So yeah, clearly a kind of that baby boom. Like I don't know if that's still that cohort, but there's just that.
Yeah, it is. Stanford, we partner with quite often, and Dr. Laura Carstensen was here a couple months back talking about the new map of life. And it's really this living to 100. And, the babies being born today are going to be healthy and live very long lives. And how do we make sure that there's infrastructure for that?
Yeah. Interesting. So you referenced that you're working on the strat plan, and so looking to address what you're staring at in terms of this aging population. I guess in terms of just interesting to hear the story and just the what the services you're providing. What are I guess on this topic of trends, what are some of the trends that I guess concern you? What are some of the trends that you're encouraged by in terms of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I would say encouraged by people really embracing aging in a way that they didn't. So there's always been this stigma where aging is you're feeble, you're frail, and that's really not the case. We have 95-year-olds hiking like you and I would have trouble keeping up with on the weekends. And so that's encouraging that people are becoming educated, that they're making plans in advance so that their families aren't figuring out. I think that is a phase that's hopefully going out where, oh, my family will deal with it, and people really taking agency over making their own decisions and documenting that is really exciting. I think the challenge is older adults primarily across the country are on fixed incomes, and so really struggling to meet the ability to stay in their communities, not being kind of priced out of where they live is something that we see and hear, especially here in the Bay Area. I think people see, oh, Palo Alto, they've got money, they don't need anything, and that's really not the case. We have people that are what you would consider affluent, but really only in terms of kind of house rich, cash poor. And so how do we meet their needs? How are they able to stay in the community is really one of the things that we're trying to tackle.
Kristina, you referenced technology, and certainly that's sounds like it could be a big portion or will be a big portion of that strategy plan. I'm curious what your perspective is in terms of what role does technology have over the next 5, 10, 15, 50 years for Avenidas?
You know, in terms of on the program side, we have very active, engaged seniors, older adults, if you will. Today's seniors don't really like that term, so we're going with older adults,
Okay.
for lack of a better term. And they are using Apple Pay. They're taking classes to learn about online dating. They are photo editing. It's not really like the digital divide or learning how to do Zoom anymore. It's really, how do I take this phone? I was just talking to one of my board members who got a new iPhone, and she was so happy because she asked Siri for something and Siri gave it to her. And she was so surprised by it, but it's becoming more comfortable with technology so that people really have the tools to do what they need, online banking, even filing, you know, your taxes or whatever, being able to manipulate technology is really important on the service side. And then on the agency organization side, we have not had resources dedicated to technology in a way that has set us up to know who we're serving, what those needs are, what are we seeing across
Right.
segments of our organization. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to highlighting in this next strategic plan, because if we don't have that data, we can't make wise decisions.
Right.
And with limited resources, we really need to have that data at our disposal at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess kind of tied to, you referenced it earlier, and I've in conversation with your team too, just some of the misconception as well that exists in this Palo Alto area, in that, hey, there's already wealth there, there's no need. I guess, how are you approaching and overcoming some of that stigma and some of that kind of misconception, if you will?
I think that's definitely a work in progress. We try to bring light to it at our events and our marketing in the community. I try to get out there and talk about that quite often, but I don't think it's any one thing. Unfortunately, a lot of donors, which we rely on so heavily and thank our donors, but they see that we have an endowment and we don't actually get to use that endowment because it's for the future. And so how we fundraise across grants and individual donors and foundations, et cetera, that strong tech and data is needed for us to do that efficiently. It all ties in together.
Yeah, Kristina, I jump in here with a question. So not ever living in Palo Alto or the surrounding communities, the optics might be from the outside very affluent, and I'm sure that affluence is concentrated, in a certain segment. But I would imagine the community is like just a very diverse community. All walks of life, which really is needed for any healthy community. What's the engagement with the technology community, and within your organization? Are there partnerships? Is there are they involved? I'm just being in technology my whole life. That's a really interesting question that I've got.
You would think yes.
Okay, well, I'm
Not so
sorry
much.
I'm sorry to hear where this is going.
Not so much. We actually partner with this company called Ask Kevin, and they are two retired tech executives, and they've started this business really helping older adults become more educated, do a lot of scam prevention, which we are all so at risk for. And what they do is go out to help older adults kind of smart their homes. And we've been talking more recently about how do we connect, because I think potentially we could get some more support from these larger tech companies if we're lifting up technology, which we need to do. As of right now, we have not
Right, it
felt very
sounds like an emerging market for you in terms of partnership with technology. It's interesting to focus on one point you made, and that is scams and just the sort of preying on that community. I read something recently, and I actually shared it with my mom. We were together as a family in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and my mom and my siblings, and we were actually having this conversation around just the prevention and really educating her on what is going on out there, and that it's a measure twice, cut once. Like, don't respond to requests. Reach out to your family first, and let us sort of be a
That's right.
sounding board. And so I'm interested
Don't
in
push the button that says push here.
right. So what strategy? Because I mean, this is just it seems to be, in my mind at least, I've got more awareness to this than I did before. Maybe it's because that's a growing trend. Maybe it's just because my mother's getting older and I'm now more aware of this. But what are you doing in the community to educate the folks you're working with?
Yeah, it is a constant battle. And for my aging mother as well, she got a call saying, "Oh, Spectrum wants to reduce my bill. All I have to do is send in $75." And I was like, "Oh, please don't." We provide education both from our tech partners. We are partnering actually with the city of Palo Alto in, I think it's September. We're doing a fraud prevention, but it's constant. They have savvy seniors that is a scam prevention. A lot of education, though, even internally to our team. We've been getting a lot more emails that look like they're from someone and they're really not. It's a scary time, I think, especially with older adults, though, because oftentimes they're living alone or they're looking for that social connection piece.
Yeah.
They are that much more at risk. There's more time on their hands to get into areas that might not be so safe.
Yeah.
And I think the scammers know that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll share maybe just one example that I had heard, and this is something we've now implemented with my mom. I think just with AI and I don't know how to do this. I maybe go and figure it out, but I don't know I don't know how they're doing this, but they're essentially recreating my face and my voice and communicating as though it's me. And there's obviously, just based on facial recognition and voice recognition, a huge amount of trust that would be placed, if that call came through to my mom. So we've actually implemented with her this sort of concept of a safe word. And I heard that from a friend that, he had read it somewhere and they did it with with his family. And I thought, that's a really good idea, because we're just in this whole new world of sort of new threats, I guess, and new attack vectors, if you will, against that older adult population. So I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
Scott. That's really good.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, there's a free gift for joining us today. But yeah, I told my mom about this, and she's like, "Boy, I didn't know that existed, and I'm glad you told me." And so now we've got this word that if she's ever finds herself in that situation, she'll ask that a question, which will then prompt a response, and hopefully that ends that threat. But
yeah, no, it's a really scary time right now. And our children are growing up in a way that, I'm in my 40s. I had no idea any of this, right? So it's a scary time.
Right. Well, with scary times, with threats, there's all kinds of wonderful opportunities, and your organization is clearly providing that to the community, and so it's amazing, just to hear just a little bit of your story. Couple of I guess other thoughts and questions that I'd love to get your perspective on, in terms of just the biggest opportunity ahead for Avenidas. What is that? What are you dreaming about, and what's the inspiring side of sort of all of the challenges that are out there, the great work you guys are doing? Where are you? What's your thought on that?
I think when I think about our future, both at the end of our strategic plan, which will be 2030, and beyond, the social connectedness work is super impactful. So people, not just older adults, we're working with a local youth organization to try to have more intergenerational programming. There's a lack of social connection, right? We're on our phones, we're on meetings, but we're not having those organic conversations that once happened. And especially for an older adult who's more limited physically, the social connection piece is super impactful. They're very at risk for social isolation, and we're doing several of our programs focus around that. I think another is that there's an interesting opportunity here in Palo Alto where the old Cubberley High School is being remodeled. It's been on the docket for a while, and it looks like it's going to happen, which will allow us to have kind of an Avenidas Point 2 in South Palo Alto, where their older adults don't have access to a service like ours. But mostly I am excited just to see really how we can rally and develop our resources to continue to be here to meet the need of the population that's really growing, and looking forward to meeting those challenges.
Kristina, I know that this is an opportunity to hear your story. There was one thing that you shared a little while back, just about the conference that's coming up in October here at Caregiver Conference. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to speak to that and share that, because I think that's pretty unique and something that not many others are doing, just by way of sharing resources for the upcoming challenges. So do you want to maybe share about that?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Matt, because I haven't talked too much about caregivers, but the older adults that we serve are really often supported by a caregiver, and it's helping that caregiver to identify themselves, right? Adult children are caregivers, but they don't necessarily put that label on themselves until there's a crisis.
Yeah.
So how do we help educate our caregivers to know kind of what to expect throughout that aging journey? And one way that we do that, of course, is through our support groups, but our annual caregiver conference this year is being hosted at a larger venue at the Los Altos Community Center, and will allow us to have about 200 people. And so it's super exciting, really, to offer education, vendors, community, right? That opportunity to build community with one another, so that as they're going through this journey, they're not alone, because caregiving is really hard, and you need people in your corner to help support you, like Avenidas, but also friends and family. So yeah, October 3rd, we have 9 different sessions across 3 tracks. We're really talking about resilience and education across early, middle, and late stage caregiving. Someone who maybe just has a family member that they know they're going to have to care for one day, all the way up to someone who might be caring for someone more cognitively or physically impaired.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love the just analogy of the journey of aging, and just different journeys, because I think the folks who are, like you said, caregiving may not know that they are to be a caregiver until something occurs. So just having that kind of network and community.
Definitely getting out in front of it is really what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's really cool. And I know we're I know we're starting to wind down this conversation, so I've got one last question for you here, and then I'll give Scott an opportunity to do so. But if you were to distill down, so you've been in this role for 2 years, Avenidas for 8 years, but you've been in this sector for a long time. What's your biggest, most important lesson that you've learned over that time duration as well? It's a loaded question.
No, that's a good one. Aging is not something to fear. If you're lucky, you will get to age. Not everybody gets to. I feel like it's a privilege, and really something to be supported and celebrated in a way that I think people don't always do in our community. And so that's really what I'm working for, is taking your journey kind of on strong, and not just like, oh, I'll, like, if something happens, I'll think about it then. Especially, we were talking about the village earlier. They're like, oh, I'm not ready for that. Well, who's your community that's going to help you then, right? Don't wait until you need it. Build it as you're on that journey while you can, and you have that agency. So that would be it. Don't fear aging. Be lucky that you're able to do so.
That was awesome that you just had that on the top of your mind there. That's fantastic. But Scott, I'll let you kind of close out here.
Yeah, well, Kristina, I love that. I have a mother who is 79. If she ever listens to this, I better get that number right. So, she is in that category, and don't fear aging. I'm gonna share that with her, because those few words mean a lot. So thank you for sharing that. We'll wrap up with this. We get people who watch these podcasts or listen to these podcasts and reach out to Matt and I and say, hey, I want to learn more. How can I get in contact? So we give every guest just the opportunity to share that. So website, probably a great resource. And we'll post this in the comments within the show notes. But how do people reach out to you? What's the best way for somebody to find you?
So our website is www.avenidas.org, Avenidas.org. There are options to learn about our programs, to donate, to volunteer. We have a huge volunteer corps doing amazing work. And then my email is klugo@avenidas.org. Reach out anytime.
All right. And if folks want to learn more about this upcoming conference that you're doing, is that on the website?
It will be on our website.
Okay, wonderful. Kristina, thanks for doing this. We're very
Thank you.
grateful for the relationship and grateful for your time today. Just having you share your story and that of Avenidas. And I can't wait to meet you in person at the first possible opportunity. I'll have to do a trip with Matt, and we'll come and see you. But thank you for doing this. We're really grateful. And I know that those that listen are going to get a lot of value from this.
Thank you for having me.
This has been another episode of Belmar Bites, brought to you by Belmar Consulting. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or on our website at belmarcloud.com.